Today I'm going to teach you how I actually see the markets, and I'm also going to share with you my thought processes as to what to buy, as well as more importantly what not to buy. There's a lot of theories on efficient market hypothesis, which is markets are efficient most of the time, and that's actually true, but there are actually periods where markets are overly greedy as well as overly depressed. And that's why people like Warren Buffett, they've made themselves a legend simply by understanding the value and simply by understanding when markets are actually at certain stages. And that's where they actually invest a little bit more or invest a little bit less. That's where the difference actually comes in. Let me help you understand this whole theory a bit better with a scale. So if we understand the scale, 50% of the time markets are efficient, correct? And then on one extreme, markets are greedy. 25% of the time, markets are greedy. There's just no rational thinking to think. There's just no calculation of risk. On the other hand, it's depressed. 25% of the time is depressed. Everything is gloomy. Think back on COVID-19, March 2020. Everything is gloomy. The world is going to end. So 25% of the time is gloomy, depressed. 50% of the time is at the right price, and 25% of the time is greedy. Now, why do we need to understand this whole scale? Simply because it ties into the next part, which is you need to buy good companies. That is something that Warren Buffett has actually mentioned before. You'd rather buy a good company at fair price than buy a lousy company at a good price. Why? Good companies tend to hover at fair price as well as a greedy state more often than not. So they hover at fair price and greedy state, which is good for you as an investor. Bad companies, on the other hand, hover in the fair price as well as the depressed price more often than not. So you want to be on the right side of things. But again, let me explain to you why pricing actually matters. I've actually done a previous video on Tesla, and in that sharing, I know you've seen it before. Look for links below if you haven't. I mentioned that it's better possibly to wait for Tesla share to correct. Back then, Tesla share price was 800 plus. For it to come down to something more realistic, I think that was the much better decision, because pricing matters. It does not matter whether you buy the best company or not, but if you buy a wrong price, you could lose money. You could lose 50% if you buy at a greedy state and it's coming back to the fair price state. So you get that. So that's a very important concept, because if you just focus on buying good companies, you can get trapped at buying things at a wrong price. And you're going to spend years and years where it tanks in the fair price state, and you kind of see every single other company zooming past you. That's the problem with buying stocks. Everybody loves buying stocks, but when they buy stocks, they realize other shares are just zooming past in terms of performance, and they're just sitting with a baby that doesn't seem to move. When you buy the index, you buy broad base, then very simple, you're just buying market movement. That is why I actually build portfolios with just broad-based investing. No need to pick stocks, because we really don't want to have the situation where you bought this, it's a good company, but then you see everybody else left and right moving past you in terms of performance, and it sucks. So let's move on to a different point, which is also good companies are also not eternal. We also need to understand tech companies tend to have that problem a little bit more, which goes to show, if you buy Coke, if you buy Disney, they are very likely going to outlast all these current incumbents in technology. They're going to outlast Facebook, they're going to outlast Tesla. I think that's very likely. Coke, 20 years now, people are still going to drink Coke. We don't know how Elon Musk can push Tesla forward. We don't know how Mark Zuckerberg can push Facebook forward. So again, do you want to invest in companies that turn? And you also need to understand that good companies are not eternally good companies. That is something seldom mentioned also. So Warren Buffett also mentioned something. You rather buy a company that any idiot can run, because sooner or later someone that is not too good is going to run a company and run it down. Classic example, look at IBM. IBM right now is in this down phase. They are no longer in the limelight. It's very sad. They've been there for many years, but right now they're just one of the very sad tech companies. Now let's change gears. Let's move to bad companies. Bad companies, as I mentioned, hover a lot of times in the right price zone as well as the depressed zone a bit more. And you know, it's also not impossible to make money from bad companies, because when they come from depressed zone back to the right price zone, it's very possible to see 50% gains very quickly. Prices shoot up back to the right price zone. And there are actually people, they're actually experts who know how to navigate such terrain. Let me share with you this guy, Sam Gui. He's also known as Popiah King. Sam Gui, in my opinion, invests in very funny companies, but he knows how to turn them around. He knows how to make them work, get back to the fair value price where he can make substantial profit. His net worth, $2 billion. So don't think too lightly of him. He's respectable in that sense. I wish I could interview him, understand his thought processes on when and how to identify bad companies that can be moved back to fair value and make substantial gains. So there are a lot of investment techniques. Don't follow just buy best company kind of theory. There are different ways. Different investors have different style. I also pull another example to illustrate points. Sam Marine. Sam Marine is a poor cousin of Keppel Corp. We kind of know that already. Once upon a time, it was a good company. Number 2 in terms of their niche. But right now the industry is hurting. They are now looking more like a bad company with a lot of losses and stuff. Look at the share price for Sam Marine. It's been depressed for years, correct? But if you understand this theory on right price, depressed, greedy, you understand that at some point Sam Marine is bound to shoot back up into possibly the right price zone. But again, this is not a recommendation you should buy Sam Marine, because again, it can take years and years with a lot of fake moves, and then you can just see good companies swinging past by and you're so sad holding a company that you thought was going to turn around tomorrow. This is just to illustrate to you how things actually work on the market. And with that, I would like to touch back on the concept of buying the best companies, because I see that surfacing on forums a lot. If you see some of the popular names, you'll see Amazon, you'll see Tesla, you'll see Apple, simply because the recent years share price has been spectacular and that concept has been regurgitated a lot of times. So everybody's thinking along the same lines. But I'd like to value it by helping you think critically. Best, we have to define what is best, because every single niche there's a different best. It's just like this lady with the best figure, that guy with the best attitude. What are you looking at, and what I'm looking at could be very different. So if you understand best, we need to really define what is best, because every single best there is a winner there that can deliver you very good returns. Let me show you an example. Who's the best real estate agency in Singapore? Propnex, correct? If you haven't seen them already, I think it's time to look at them. I have even a previous video touching on Propnex. Propnex is the king. They have the biggest agency. They have fastest growing revenues and stuff. To me, it's a very clear-cut example. Best agency in property in Singapore. Right now, Propnex share price is looking very good. It's been my top holding for quite a long while. I've actually shared that in my private channel. So if you're keen, look for that below. And I've also a Let's Make a Difference campaign whereby I'm trying to help financial literacy, trying to crowdfund and build something towards financial literacy, solving it for needy families. Look for that, I'll explain more there. But back to this portion on identifying niches. One is a winner in that niche because you can deliver returns. I give you an example. Sheng Siong, I'm sure you're aware if you're in Singapore, Sheng Siong is one of the leaders in supermarkets, correct? Their profit margins are fantastic. You compare that to Dairy Farm, you realize that Sheng Siong knows how to run the business very well. Best company in supermarket? Very likely. You call Apple to come down to Singapore to sell apples. They can't do it, or they're not interested to do it. So Sheng Siong again is a best company in its niche, and if you know how to appreciate it, you can make yourself very rich with it. I explained to you again back with the theory on where things are actually moving. Now Propnex is in this phase. If you look at share price again, it's very likely in this phase of where it's moving from fair price to a greedy state, simply because people are now aware property transactions are moving, which means profits for Propnex is going to be looking very good for 2021. That's why share price is moving now from fair value to the greedy state. Do you want to get invested at such a state? You have to consider very carefully on the price of the shares itself. What about for Sheng Siong? The greedy phase has actually passed, because the greedy phase was quite obviously mid of 2020. That was where circuit breaker measures, lockdown measures, COVID fears were all running rampant. Everybody was thinking supermarket is going to be everlasting. We're just going to buy food and just come back home and never go out. That's not the case. And with that, Sheng Siong share price actually corrected, and very likely it's moved back from greedy back to its fair price state. If you bought it at a greedy phase, you realize that you're now looking at losses. But now, if you're buying at a fair price state, you do need to understand that it may not move immediately, but you're past that exuberant state, which is at least better than those who bought it at the peak. So with that, you understand how I perceive the markets. Maybe it helped you understand decision making also a bit better. With that, inviting you to press on like so that more people can see valuable content like this. If you haven't seen my presentation on Sheng Siong, look out for this video over here. This tutorial breaks down how he actually runs his margins, how he actually runs his expansion. I think Sheng Siong very undoubtedly is one of the nicest supermarkets in Singapore. I'm keen to share that with you. With that, I'll sign off and see you in that tutorial. Take care and goodbye.